If you're looking to go fast in style without breaking the bank, it doesn't get much better than a Chevrolet Corvette. This vehicle has had quite the history here in America, in fact 70 plus years, and the latest C8 Corvette was introduced back in 2020. This was a big deal for Chevy because it was the first time ever that we got a production mid-engine Corvette, and the company later followed it up with more powerful versions like the Z06 and the E-Ray. Now, as you can see, this week we're spending some time with a model of the Corvette which I haven't had a chance to actually live with for a week. This model here is a 2024 Corvette Stingray Convertible in the 2LT package. So unlike the coupes that I tested before it, this has the first ever power retractable hardtop on a Corvette, which really kind of changes the whole livability of this vehicle if you guys want to put the top down and feel the wind in your hair. So as you can see, we're going to live with this Corvette convertible. We're going to put it through our usual battery of tests at the end of this video. We're going to find out, has Chevrolet still managed to create the ultimate sports car bargain with the C8 Vet? Stay tuned to find out. So by now you guys should be pretty familiar with the exterior design of the C8 Corvette. This car came out, like I said, back in 2019. It's kind of crazy to me to think that we've seen this generation out for about 5 years. It's probably due for a pretty significant refresh soon, but at the same time, it's still a very good looking vehicle. It still turns a lot of heads everywhere, especially in the right color combination. This particular one that I'm showing you is painted in torch red. It's actually a free exterior color. And again, I put the roof back up, so now it essentially almost just looks like the coupe version until we actually get to the rear of the vehicle. But you can see, let's go ahead and talk about some of the styling for 2024. So it's all pretty much the same. All Corvettes still come standard with these full LED headlights. You can see it's got an LED low and high beam, LED daytime running light, LED turn signals, no fog lights on this vehicle, but my test car has, for an extra $600, the more aggressive front splitter at the front end. It's got these really nice air intakes, which again is all necessary for the cooling. The 2LT includes the front camera along with the parking sensors. That's really important, of course, because this is a very low vehicle to kind of keep from scraping the front end on curbs. My test car also has, for around $2,500 extra, the front axle lift system, which helps to raise the vehicle up by 2 inches. That essentially is going to give you a little bit more a clearance if you guys are going to be parking this vehicle and low or like trying to get it up your driveway, for example. You can see the hood. I love the cut lines in the hood. It just really looks aggressive. And for a base model Corvette, I have to say Chevy has done a phenomenal job. I really don't know how they could improve this and make it look even better. In terms of underneath that hood there, because remember the engine is now at the rear, there's a little bit of a pressure pad underneath here. If I push that and I have the key fob on me, that actually will open up the hood for you. And Chevy says that underneath this frunk, the company doesn't claim what the actual cargo figure is underneath here, but they said you have a total of 12.6. Now I suspect that's when you split up the front trunk with the rear trunk. You can see this is actually a pretty deep storage area. There's a little bit of a power outlet in here, which I wasn't expecting. There's a emergency release in there, and you can see it's a pretty deep area where you can put your groceries. You can access the washer fluid, the brake fluid and stuff. And then when you want to close it, it doesn't soft close, you just kind of have to push it down. But overall, you can see, moving around the side profile of the latest C8 Vet, this is actually a relatively big vehicle, at least by sports car standards. Chevy essentially had to move the actual front passenger compartment by 16 inches to accommodate the engine at the rear. So we have an overall length of 182.3 inches long with a 107.1 inch long wheelbase. This is a little bit longer versus its main rival, a Porsche 911. The new Vet is around 76 inches wide. It's around 3 inches wider if you guys go for the Z06 or the E-Ray model. You can see my test car does not have the Z51 upgrade performance package. So we have these upgrades, however, for the wheels. These are for around $1,500 extra. This is a midnight gray forged wheel with a kind of a red lip. You have a 19-inch wheel at the front, and you can also see we have a Pilot Sport for all-season tire. It's a 245 width tire at the front. You have a 12.6-inch rotor as well. My test car for around $700 or $500, I'm sorry, has the brake calipers painted in a bright red, which I highly recommend. It'll be black painted if you guys don't go for that. You have an independent suspension front and rear, but my test car is missing the magno-rheological dampers, the adaptive suspension, which I think would have been a nice addition. You can see the rear wheel itself is going to be a fatter staggered tire, so you can see still the same design, but it's a 20-inch wheel wrapped in a 305 by 30 ZR20 tire. So again, fat tire, and now with the engine at the back, it's going to help to kind of create that extra, traction. You can see you can also get options where you can get carbon fiber on this mirror. You can get the roof either body colored like my test car, or you can also get it painted in carbon flash for $1,200. I'm sorry, for $1,600. My test car has the this area here painted in carbon flash, which you can also get it for the entire roof. I probably would get it from the roof panel. It also kind of extends extends to these little air inlets, which you can see these are functional and necessary, that allows for air to get to the engine to cool the actual engine itself. And then looking at the rear of the C8 Vet, you can see this is where you can tell that I'm showing you the convertible model, because on the coupe, you won't basically have the glass panel that allows you to actually see the engine. So that's one of the downsides to getting the convertible, is you can't actually see the engine. But then looking at the rear, you can see without the Z51 package, you just kind of have this very subtle kind of duckbill spoiler at the back. You can also get an accessory high wing spoiler for like an extra 2,000 bucks. I probably would get that because I think it looks a little bit naked without a spoiler, but you can see looking at the rest of the rear, the rear end of the new C8 was probably a point of controversy because they got rid of the signature oval tail lights, and you also have a full LED design where it's an LED turn signal, LED brake light, LED reverse lights. Down here you can see there are some functional heat extractors for the engine. You get still the signature quad outlet exhaust system, although my test car is missing for $2,000 the upgraded performance exhaust, which I actually had, the last Corvette I had last year had the performance exhaust. This one doesn't have it, so let's go ahead and fire it up. You can hear how it sounds real quick. And even without the performance exhaust, it still sounds pretty good, but my money, however, would be, spending that just to get that additional sound, because I think it's very important. Now, looking at the cargo area, you can see, open this up here, and you get probably another 6.5 cubic feet of storage space, although this area here is pretty deep. It's not very large, so that's something you can keep in mind. My backpack kind of fits nicely in here, but if you wanted to carry like a roller bag, like a 21-inch roller bag, it would be kind of a tight fit. You might be able to squeeze it in, or squeeze one in the actual front trunk. But again, it's nice that Chevy gives you, 2 trunk options, and then when you want to go close this, it kind of just has a soft close feature, so you kind of just have to click it, and it'll actually close itself down. Now, I want to show you guys the roof operation, and you can actually open the roof from the fob itself. So if I push this button here, or actually, the first thing I have to do is lock the car and then push this button here. And before I actually finish opening up the roof, I'm going to show you guys the engine, because my test car for $1,000 has basically the engine appearance package. That gives you a glass panel here so you can actually see the powertrain. And for another $500, Chevy will basically put a red cover on the engine. So again, that was a new feature introduced, I believe, this year that allowed convertible owners to actually show off your engine. But again, you have to open up the roof panel to show off the engine. But since we're underneath here, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain specs. So this model here is the base engine Stingray, which means you have a 6.2 liter gasoline direct injection pushrod V8. So it's a small block Chevy V8 known as the LT2. Without the performance exhaust system, it makes 490 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque. It all goes out through an 8-speed dual-clutch transmission that's built by Tremec. There is no manual transmission, and remember, available on the current C8 Corvette. This model here only comes with rear-wheel drive, including the Z06. If you guys want all-wheel drive, Chevy will happily sell you the E-Ray, which is an all-wheel drive version, because it has this engine with an electric motor at the front axle, giving it all-wheel drive. I'm gonna have to save that for a different review. Chevy says that with the Z51 package and launch control, you should be able to get to 60 in 2.9 seconds. It won't be as quick on this model because the convertible is heavier, and I don't have the launch control with, again, the more aggressive brakes and the more aggressive suspension that you get with the Z51 package. This car should have a top speed of a little over 180 miles an hour, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 3,500 pounds. This is about 100 pounds heavier versus the coupe. Now, before we get inside the interior of the new Corvette, I want to show you guys, or at least finish showing you guys, what the roof is like to put up and down from the fob. Remember, you can do that from the actual key fob itself via this little button here. So to do that, you just push the unlock button once, push and hold this button here, and then as you can see, the roof mechanism will open that up first. That allows you to see the engine, and it takes about 16 seconds. There are a total of 6 different electric motors. You can also do this at speeds up to 30 miles an hour. So from the actual fob, Chevy will let you put the roof down. You cannot put the roof up, however, from the fob. You'll have to get in the car, start it, and actually put the roof up from there. But as you can see, once the roof is down, I love the way this looks, especially right here with the way this kind of has the roll, these little bulges kind of integrated. I love how these are carbon flash painted. Again, this is part of an extra package or an extra option to paint those in the carbon flash as opposed to it being body colored, along with the little area here. To get inside the vehicle, there's a little pressure pad underneath here. You basically just push that, open it up, and that will allow you to open the door and get inside the cabin. Now, obviously, C8 Corvettes are only two-seaters, so again, if you guys need a back seat, you're gonna have to go buy a Camaro or a Mustang. But my test car here has a really wonderful color combination. The torch red exterior with the sky cool gray GT2 competition seats. It also has the optional two-tone look with the black suede Alcantara, along with the torch red seat belts for an extra $500. It just looks fantastic with the torch red exterior color, which is surprisingly a free color. These seats are an extra $1,700 to get these seats. They're also heated and ventilated. That's included when you guys go for the LT2 package. Which is definitely, I think, a nice worthy upgrade. The seats themselves adjust, I believe, in 14 different ways. You have two-person memory over here on the driver's side, which is definitely a nice touch. And overall, it just makes a great first impression. Chevy really shows you that they can build a world-class interior if they really put their mind to it. Now, you can see the door panel here has some really nice real leather going across the upper portion. This right here, however, is just a soft touch injection molded plastic, although it could be a little bit softer. You won't really touch that, however. There's more leather going across here. On this portion of the door panel, it's nice and padded here where your elbows would rest. The LT2 package also includes the Performance Series 14-speaker Bose stereo system, which also sounds good if you guys get tired of listening to that engine. You can see the window controls. They're one touch up down for both of them. That's to pull the top down. That's to roll that little window up and down over there. Which again, all the switchgear feels relatively high quality. You have more buttons here to lock and unlock the car. That's how you open the door. There's also a manual latch release there in case the power goes out, and then you can open up the trunk and the front hood from those two buttons here. Now, getting inside the Corvette, this is where my old age is starting to show, because it definitely requires you to fall into this cabin with, like, I think 5 inches of ground clearance. As I get in and shut the door, the door has a relatively solid sounding thunk. I didn't really love the rattle when I shut the door, but as you can see here, once you get in here, Chevy just really made this interior very much for the driver. It's a driver-oriented cabin. Starting the vehicle up, you can see the start-stop button is right here where you'd expect it to be. And again, this particular one that I'm showing you does not have the performance exhaust, but it still has that nice, snarly, burly, small block V8. If I push this little Z button here, I've set it to basically go into a track mode, and then when I start to rev it up, even without the performance exhaust, love how fast that engine revs. It sounds good. You just aren't going to get a noise like that in something like a 911 Carrera, for example, unless you guys go for like a GT3 model, which is, again, literally double, if not triple, the price of this vehicle. Now, looking at the rest of this cabin, I don't really think it's necessary to go to the 3LT package. That'll basically just get you more leather stitching everywhere in the interior. I think a 2LT is definitely suffice. You still have this beautiful leather with the contrasting stitching going over the upper portion of the dash. You can see it's also over the instrument panel hood. You also get a heads-up display included with this trim. And then you can see here, for an extra $600, my test car also has the full Alcantara wheel with the racing stripe, although this would have been better if it was red. I would skip this because Alcantara, while it feels nice now, when it's nice and new, it's gonna look like hell after a few years when the oils in your hands really just turns this into just a hot mess. You can see there are paddle shifters right here, which are actually metal. They are connected to the actual wheel. You can see this package also includes a power tilt telescoping steering column. It also has a heated steering wheel as well, which is nice. A lot of buttons, traditional buttons here for your cruise control, your audio control switches, the horn. It sounds nice and meaty, but also a little bit nondescript. You have the older style of the GM switchgear here, and then all Corvettes come standard with this 8-inch Chevrolet MyLink infotainment system with Google built in. This is technically their older software, and I do think it's time for Chevy to kind of give us a larger screen. 8 inches is starting to look a little bit small, although I don't really know how it's going to fit. You do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, although for some reason my phone is not connecting to it. I was using it earlier to film, which probably threw the system off. If I can get the CarPlay to come back up, I'll show you. And it really just takes up the whole screen, but it's nothing super special, of course. But again, it does have factory embedded GPS if you guys would like. It's built in Google Maps essentially. And it's relatively quick and easy to use. It has voice commands. You can also pull up your cameras. There's your front curb camera to keep you from curbing or damaging that front splitter, of course. You can also pull up the backup camera as well. The resolution and graphics aren't fantastic, but again, The screen itself is a little bit older, and for some reason right there, it's not allowing me to connect my phone via the CarPlay. Now there's the button for the front axle lift system that'll raise and lower it by 2 inches. You can also turn on the camera there. Without the Z71 package, you don't have the performance traction management, and that basically essentially rolls in the launch control function. So without it, you don't have launch control. And then this right here controls your 8-speed dual clutch transmission. You basically pull up on that to go to reverse. There's your backup camera. Push that to go to neutral, pull on that up on that to go to drive, and then push that to go into a manual mode, push that button to go to park. I love the stitching here along the actual center console. There's a nice little cup holder area here, and then there's this big sea of buttons over here that basically looks like a command control panel for your dual zone climate control, your heated and ventilated seats. I love how Chevy gives you an actual hard button, but this kind of creates a little bit of an uncomfortable edge for the passenger if you guys plan to have a passenger often over here. You can see there's a little tiny screen there to show what the climate is. Open that up, you can see there's a nice little compartment which has 2 USB charging ports, a C and an A. There's your wireless phone charging pad that's included with the 2LT package, along with a nice little speaker here for the Bose stereo. You can see the seats, they look fantastic. They hold you in place nicely, but try them out for yourself to make sure you like them. I found them to be a little too constricting on the bolsters, even when you adjust them to not hug you so deeply after a longer drive. So try that out for yourself. I'm not a big guy, as you guys can see. You can see there's also a little bit of storage over there on that side. Push that button, that opens up the glove compartment. It's actually a pretty decent sized glove compartment. It's damped and it's lined with felt. And then you can see here, there's a digital camera rearview mirror, but it doesn't work when the roof is down. So because the camera is actually on the roof, so without it, visibility out of the back is not great. So my recommendation, go for at least a 2LT. That'll roll in that digital camera roof. But overall, the interior is still a very nice place to spend time. Material quality is high. Build quality is also pretty high, although there are a couple of gaps that you see there that's pretty wide. I would have preferred if Chevy made that gap a little bit, tighter. It's not also even over here on the driver's side, but other than that, it really proves that Chevy can build a world-class interior. But I'll be curious to see what the company plans to do when they refresh this. I would like to see a larger screen and their later software of infotainment system, which you've seen in other newer Chevy and GM products. So here we are back behind the wheel of the C8 Corvette, and I say it that way, but I mean it in a good way because I absolutely love the C8 Corvette. It's hard to believe that it's been basically 5 years since Chevy first decided to introduce this new 8th generation, and the company decided to go mid-engine. Obviously, we've had a chance to also drive the Z06 and the E-Ray, although I haven't had either of those vehicles for a full week to test. I'm hoping sometime later this year we will have one of those back home, but until then, this is the first time that I've actually had the convertible Corvette for a full week. And remember, this is the first time the Corvette is going with a power retractable hardtop. The model that we're driving is a 2LT without the Z51 performance package and without the performance exhaust. So this is the softest and quietest Corvette model that you can basically buy. It's more of the GT spec, but we still have 490 horsepower, 465 pound-feet of torque through an 8-speed dual clutch transmission built by Tremec rear-wheel drive. Still get a limited slip differential, so we'll go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise. The last time I tested the C8 was on this stretch, and it was like 3.5 seconds with the coupe. This is about 100 pounds heavier, so let's go ahead and see what we can get here on this little stretch. We'll go ahead and brake torque it. There's no launch control though. Oof. 3.6 seconds there, and I actually got a little bit sideways. I'm surprised because usually the Corvette has really good traction. I did have the traction control turned off there. It gets a little bit, it steps out a little bit, but because, remember, of that mid-engine layout, it allows this car to basically put the power down because of the weight being pushed. It's almost 60% of, or I'm sorry, a little over 60% of the weight is on the rear axle. And that helps to, again, push the tires down, but because we don't have the Z51 package, it means we don't have summer performance tires. So instead we have these Michelin Pilot Sport all-season tires. We have a 20-inch wheel on the back, and it still puts the power down okay, but it's definitely, you're gonna want the Z51 package if you want the stickiest Corvette. That's obviously something you're gonna have to go with if you wanna get, the best possible traction. But let's go ahead and see what we can get here. I'll just floor it this time. 3.58 there, so I'll try it one more time where I'm not going to brake torque it this time, but that's with it more going slightly uphill. This thing feels fast. I mean, Chevy says that with the Z51 package, when you engage the launch control, this car could do it in about 2.9 seconds with rollout, with the 1 foot of rollout subtracted out. You're not going to really be able to get that in the real world. That's like on a prepped surface, because remember, this is still a rear drive vehicle, but still the base model Corvette doing it in 3.5 seconds is absolutely insane. Remember, the convertible model is about 100 pounds heavier, but it still, you know, feels properly quick. I will say that it's not as loud as I need it to be. I would strongly recommend spending the extra $2,000 and going for that performance exhaust, but oh yeah, that's nice. That is a lovely sound. You gotta love the way that engine sounds. I mean, that noise is just going to be going away at some point because everything's going to be going electric, going hybridized and whatnot. So I'm going to miss something like that. Now I want to do something really quick. Now the car says that I could put the top down basically at around 30 miles an hour. It speeds up to 30 miles an hour. So I had to disconnect my camera. We're going to go ahead and put the top down. We're going around 19 miles an hour. It takes around 16 seconds for it to put the roof down, which is not too bad. You can see it's pretty quick. And then what I'll do is I'll put this back up. We'll also raise this back up. Now, the one thing I definitely noticed is when you have the roof down, you lose that digital camera rear view mirror, and that's because the actual camera is located on the roof itself. So the roof is now stowed away. So obviously when that happens, you're gonna lose that digital camera rear view mirror, which is fine. You can't, you know, technically have that when you have the roof down. But now that we have the roof down, you get the wind in your hair, you get even more noise from the V8, which again is something that I love hearing. And then put my foot down here. The quick shifts from the 8-speed dual clutch. I mean, yes, this car no longer offers a manual, but that's okay because this is a faster transmission. It's easier to drive. And it just is a well-matched partner for this engine. This 6.2-liter V8 is phenomenal, almost 500 horsepower, but still, I want a little bit more noise from the exhaust because it's a little too quiet. That's the thing about this new Corvette. It's gotten so refined that a lot of enthusiasts said, I need more noise, which is something you can clearly fix with the aftermarket or get an even louder exhaust. But let's go ahead and try it here. This time, we won't brake torque it, we'll just floor it. Oh! There we go, 3.4 seconds, which is actually a little bit faster than the Z50 or the Stingray Coupe that I tested last year, which I don't understand why, but it put the power down a lot better when I didn't brake torque it. Because remember, we're dealing with all-season tires here, but still, put my foot down. Oh. I love this car. I absolutely love the Corvette, and I love it even more with the top down because now you can hear more of that engine, you can feel the wind in your hair, you can take in those sun rays, and it just makes it easier because of that clumsy, you know, removable hardtop panel in the coupe, which you have to store in the trunk, and if it starts raining, you're screwed. You have to pull over and take that out. It's kind of a two-person job. This is just a touch of a button. I mean, yes, you're spending $7 grand extra for it, but hell, I would absolutely spend it because this right here is just the American dream. You know, you find yourself a nice back road, you put it into its Zora mode or its track mode, and the steering in this car got nice and heavy. You did have to get used to the slight change in the weight balance of this car because now it has a tendency to be a little bit more understeery, I noticed, versus oversteery, which is fine, but that will surely be fixed with the Z51 package. The ride quality in this car, my test car is missing the Magno-Relogical Generation 4 dampers, the adaptive suspension, so it's the softest setting that you're going to find. And you know what? It's not bad. It still has a relatively good ride quality. It's smooth, but it's comfortable. You get the feeling that you're just connected to the road. You're glued onto the road. You have that nice and low feeling where the hood obviously is nice and short, so you don't have to deal with, you know, a long hood like you had for the C7 Corvette. But I put I took it out of Zora mode, which is essentially track mode. I adjusted the settings to be similar to track mode. Now it's just in its sport setting. The exhaust gets a little quieter. The steering gets a little bit lighter. If I wanted, I can go into a touring mode, which is like the comfort mode. This is where it's going to change the way that looks. Everything's going to get tailored back. The exhaust is going to get even quieter. Even though it's not technically their performance exhaust, there is still an active baffle back there that's going to open and close a few things and make it a little bit louder, just not quite as loud as that, you know, $2,000 performance exhaust. But really, this is where the the Corvette is shockingly good as an everyday commuter car. I mean, yes, it's very low, it's very wide, and you're going to be worried of people hitting you and everybody just wants to race all the time, but it's comfortable. These GT2 seats are $2,000 extra, and you know, I found them to be comfortable for a shorter drive. On a longer drive, I noticed it started to hurt my back a little bit. So try the seats out, make sure you like them. You may want to just go for the base seats. In terms of noise and wind buffeting, I'm surprised to say that it's actually pretty darn quiet in here with the window up, that rear glass panel up as well. I could also put that glass panel down, which will increase a little bit more air coming into the cabin, but I actually like it with the windows up and that panel up. It just makes for a nice serene drive. And again, this is a great car that you can take on a long road trip with your significant other. There is enough space for cargo, although I will say that the passenger side seat is not quite as comfortable as the driver's seat because of this big, big control panel here that kind of takes up space. It's also got like a kind of a hard edge to it. But you can certainly do it, if you want to take this out on a long weekend trip. In terms of the fuel efficiency, when you guys drive this thing like a jerk, you're going to get 15 mpg. That's what I got. With an 18.5 gallon fuel tank, you'll be lucky to get 300 miles of range on a full tank. But if you guys drive it efficiently in normal mode, it will do 25 miles to the gallon, which is pretty surprising, and you'll do almost 400 miles of range on a full tank, which I love the car's dual personality, because right now it's in comfort. Push the Z button here, which I set it to go basically into track mode. Start pulling the paddles here. Oh. I mean, this is the base model, guys. This is the base Corvette. And yes, it's not quite as quick as the 911 Carrera S, for example, but I don't care. You got that lovely V8, you got exotic car looks, you got a bargain basement price that doesn't feel like a bargain basement car, you got a comfortable interior. The tech could use a little bit of an upgrade, but man, it's no wonder that Corvette sales continue to basically climb. This is literally the best-selling, supercar, sports car in the market. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Chevy continue to improve their sales numbers, especially considering there's now more variants. But I'm just excited to see what Chevrolet is going to plan to do, because they're promising even faster versions of the Corvette. Even though the E-Ray and the Z06 is fast enough, this is fast enough. And yeah, this is definitely still very much a world-class sports car, even though it's been on the market for about 5 years now. So obviously it was a big point of controversy when Chevy decided to move the 8th generation Corvette to a mid-engine layout. I mean, it was basically time for them to do so, because the old C7, as you guys remembered, had a lot of trouble putting the power down. That's clearly not the case for this new C8. Even if you guys go for the higher performance models, I'm hoping I can get my hands on an E-Ray and a Z06 for a full week at some point later this year. But really what shocks me about the Corvette is the fact that this car is obviously a toy. It's an impractical toy that you're going to drive on nice days like today, for example. And the convertible version, after spending a full week with it, is an even more enticing toy. I mean, for the extra money that Chevy charges, about $6,000, I'd say it's worth every penny, and it really shows up in the sales, because Chevy managed to sell around 34,354 Corvettes in the US last year. 34,000 Corvettes is shocking. That outsells a Porsche 911 by about 3 to 1. It comes dangerously close to the sales figures that Ford did in Mustangs in the same time. They did around 53,000 Mustangs. It's also outsold the Chevrolet Camaro. It's within 10,000 units of the Dodge Challenger. So clearly, even though this is an expensive, impractical toy, Chevy manages to sell every one that they can actually build. And it really shows after spending a week why so many people love this vehicle. It's really easy to drive. It's also a really great car to drive daily if you guys are okay with sitting low and you don't necessarily need all the space. It's still quick as hell, 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds, even without the Z51 package, even though we've got the heavier convertible model. Yet when you put it into its comfort mode, you can easily just drive this thing normally and it feels smooth, it feels refined. And I think that's what Chevy has done here super right with the Corvette. Now, there are times where I think it's a little bit too soft and a little bit too quiet, but again, that's where the harder edge, Z06 model comes into play. Again, I would happily recommend going for this E51 package for an extra $6,300, which, speaking of which, if you guys are looking to purchase a Corvette, remember when this car first came out 5 years ago, it had a startingly low starting price of around just under $60,000. Sadly, inflation has allowed Chevy to raise the price of this vehicle. So if you want to get into a base Corvette coupe, Stingray, it's going to cost you at least $69,000. The convertible is going to add $7,000, so you're looking at around $77,000 for the convertible version. If you guys want this 2LT package, I highly recommend that's an extra $7,000 on top of that. So you're gonna start at around $84,000. My test car here, with some options that it has, pushes the price to around $95,700. So again, just under $100,000. I know it's a lot of money for a Corvette, especially for one that's not a Z06. However, I'd argue that a Porsche 911 is easily gonna cost you around $110,000 for a base version at least. And then Porsches, they tend to charge you an arm and a leg for everything. Realistically, a 911 that'll be comparable to this would be a Carrera S, and that'll cost you around $150,000 to $175,000. So again, half the price basically of the Porsche. You can get this vehicle that has exotic car looks, it has world-class performance, it has world-class handling, it has world-class comfort, it has really great tech features and a really nicely built interior. So it's no wonder to me that the Corvette continues to be a strong seller. And it really gets me excited for even faster versions that will be coming later this decade. But for all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview here on the 2024 Chevrolet Corvette Stingray Convertible. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at Redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.